back to another episode of the Boropolis Podcast. Of course, as always, I'm joined with Nathan, and I think it's fair to say that this week is going to be a good one. We're both very excited after what has been a superb week for Middlesbrough. 3 wins from 3. And I mean, Nathan, how good does it feel to be half decent again?
It feels fantastic. What a contrast from just a few weeks ago when we were a bit shaky with our opinions on the Boro and Neil Warnock, and 3 wins on the spin. It just changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it changes the complete outlook of the manager's future and things like that. Of course, we'll delve much deeper into that in the podcast. But yeah, overall, a good week for the Borough. But how about yourself, Nathan? You had a good week? I'm sure the Middlesbrough results have definitely helped you along the week.
Yeah, a decent week. Yeah, a decent week watching football of all different divisions. I was at Sheffield Wednesday against Lincoln City on Saturday afternoon. I didn't travel to Cardiff for 12:30 kickoff, but props to everyone that did. They made all that noise, and yeah, it was a good weekend of football.
Yeah, good stuff. So I mean, I'm sure you want to talk about Cardiff as much as me straight away and talk about all the excitement of yesterday. But of course, since we last recorded, we obviously did have that midweek game against Barnsley. Prior to that, obviously, we'd beaten Peterborough, and we spoke about in the last podcast how important it was going to be to follow up that Peterborough victory with another victory. And of course, there was a few nervy moments, but we did. But let's just talk about the game first. And as I always do, Nathan, when that team come out, how are you feeling? Of course, there was 2 changes from the win against Peterborough. It was Hernandez and my mind's completely left me there.
Uche,
Hernandez and Uche, yeah, you saved me, Nathan. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, Hernandez and Uche, and of course it was Jones and Lee Peltier that come back in and slotted into that back 3. Were you happy to see those changes before the Barnsley game?
I think it was expected that Peltier had come back in. Of course, he served his 1-match suspension for 5 bookings against Peterborough. So I think it was clear that he'd come back in. Really, he's tried and trusted under Neil Warnock, and with our lack of defensive options, he was always going to slot back in there. And then I think Jones coming in for Hernandez was probably a fair change. Hernandez just coming back to full fitness. And of course, Jones does provide us with some good width on that left-hand side. So yeah, I think the changes were fair enough, and just looking to continue on from the Peterborough game on the Saturday.
Yeah, as you say, obviously the 2 changes were sort of expected almost. And, although we'd been struggling defensively and obviously beat Peterborough, I think everyone sort of expected Peltier to come back in just to have that extra defender more than anything and sort of solidify that defence. We've had Tavernier and Hernandez playing wing backs the week before. I think Neil Warnock probably just wanted to have that little bit extra sort of know-how besides Saul Bamber and of course Mcnair and Howson, and of course it paid off. But I think just going into the game, obviously, especially early on, it felt to me almost similar to a few other games this season. QPR springs to mind, and even Blackpool to a certain extent, where they try to play the right way. They strung passes together in the first half. I'm speaking probably about the first 10 to sort of 15 minutes. And they sort of did have a small spell of pressure in the first 10 minutes. I think they went close a few times. And, early on, it was one of them where you sort of sit back and you see and think, God, could we sort of be on for the same sort of, trajectory of this season so far, where we've beat Peterborough and then we're going to sort of throw all the good work that we've done away in the previous game away. But obviously we weathered that storm, and then sort of jumping straight to the opener after 20 minutes, Andras Sporar, he's been very good since his loan move in and managed to grab his second goal. A good header and an even better knee slide. I think we've got to start there really, Nathan.
Yeah, we do love a knee slide, but yeah, fantastic delivery from Mcnair. Sporar found himself unmarked in the area, and it almost looked like he aimed for the towel in the back of the goal. as his target to nod that header in. And yeah, it set us on our way. And I think from then on, the tide of the game sort of changed, and we were well in the ascendancy and did have a lot of very good chances towards the end of that first half that we didn't really take.
Yeah, there was, of course, that one where it sort of went over the top, and I think Watmore and Sparrow both sort of didn't know who was going to go for it. It was bouncing, and you thought, come on, just one of them take it round the goalkeeper, or, just lob it over the goalkeeper's head. But the sort of both didn't really know who was going to go for it, and in the end, the keeper just grabbed it. That was one of the big chances, of course. And then again, your favourite man, we like to make a little bit of a joke out. Marcus Tavernier, there was that chance where it sort of was crossed in. It fell to the defender, who then knocked it towards the edge of the box, and it fell to Tavernier. And you just thought it was going to be a similar strike to Paddy Mcnair earlier on in the season. Just a fired shot into the bottom corner. It was set up perfectly for Tavernier, and I think he just got it completely wrong and sliced it. I just want to talk about Marcus Tavernier just quickly, actually. Sort of over the course of the past couple of games, of course, his impact on the team in terms of his work rate and how much he can carry the ball forward is just, such an addition to this Middlesbrough team, and something that we do definitely miss when he's not in the team. But, you've come under a little bit of criticism, I think it would be fair to say, earlier on in the season for your opinion. But, the last two games have again proven Tavernier has had an incredible impact, but then his end product has sort of lacked a bit. Do you think, he'll be disappointed with that chance? And obviously, I think he had a few against Cardiff, which we'll obviously get onto. But that chance against Barnsley especially was a great chance for him on his left foot. And again, he didn't really sort of take it.
Yeah, I think he just needs that bit of composure, really, just to nail the strike and get it on target instead of just lashing at it. And it did skew way wide. But yeah, we do have a very good player in our hands there with Tavernier. His work rate, of course, is just fantastic. He is up and down all the time. He doesn't mind a challenge either. Playing in that right wing back role, of course, we do need someone to fulfill some sort of defensive duties, and he does get his foot stuck in and win the ball, and he doesn't mind winning the ball and then driving on with it as well and looking to create. But yeah, it's just that end product, really. Once that's sorted, hopefully he does sort it out, really. And we have one of the better players in the division, honestly. Yeah, it's just frustrating when you see a chance like that. You think you've just got to get it on target, test the keeper, and you never know what can happen if you get it on target and test someone. But yeah, it was just dragged wide, and yeah, he just needs to get that right, I think.
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's just that little product that seems to be missing. I think a lot of spectators this season, and especially Middlesbrough fans, have obviously seen the impact he has on the team. As we say, he drives forward, and without him in the team, we look much less of a threat. I think it's fair to say. But of course, that end product will come eventually. Well, hopefully, I should probably say, nothing's ever a given, but that's what we're hoping for. And of course, we hope he does score just so we can be proved wrong, similarly to how we've been proved wrong with Neil Warnock a little bit this week. But yeah, we'll get into that later on as well. So from one missed chance to another missed chance, and we're sort of skipping from the first half to the second half here, I think Duncan Watmore is the next topic. And you know exactly what I'm going to ask you. How has Duncan Watmore managed to not double the advantage at home? Open goal on a plate from Martin Piero. You're just waiting to jump up and cheer. And yeah, I'm not actually still sure now how he hasn't just stuck it in the back of the net, to be honest.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't attend the game on Wednesday. Obviously, being down here in Lincoln, I'd struggle to get back. So I watched it on Sky Sports, and seeing Piero go pretty much through on goal with Watmore side by side, I thought, surely we've got to double the lead here. And yeah, I think he's just got it all wrong. I think he's almost slipped and kicked it off his standing leg. But yeah, it's one of them misses that you can laugh at now, knowing the full time result. But yeah, it's another big chance that goes begging really for us.
Yeah, it's another big chance, as you're saying. It was getting to that sort of nervy, sort of typical Boro time again after Watmore had missed that. You thought, we could have sealed the 3 points, and everyone was getting a little bit tetchy. And in fairness, I don't even think Barnsley really created anything that sort of really put us under pressure. They had spells of possession, but no chances really come from it. But in the end, we did, of course, find that goal that we'd been looking for so long. And of course, it was Martin Piero's delivery, which then sort of ricocheted around a little bit. It, bounced up to Matt Crooks, and he, of course, got that final touch. Well, I'm saying final touch, but of course, Saul Bamber was trying to get his name on the score sheet. I think it's fair to say it was probably Matt Crooks' goal, but, Saul, you can have it if you like, because you have been that good, yeah. I mean, we needed that, and it come at just the perfect time, really, Nathan.
Yeah, it really settled the nerves going into those last few minutes of the game. Yeah, the big tree was not going to let anyone else win that ball. I think his size and stature just helped him above everyone in the box at that point. And yeah, he's bulleted it down into the ground and into the corner. And yeah, that secured the 3 points for us. And I think it was nothing more than we deserved, really.
Yeah, like you say, nothing more than we deserved. Of course, it was nice to see another knee slide. I think it's such a common theme at the moment from our players. But yeah, of course, there was another knee slide, and there was some, incredible celebrations where I think Marcus Tavernier got caught giving it one of those to the away fans, which of course is always nice to see. That little bit of sort of, shithousery, let's call it what it is. It was nice to see, and yeah, it's always a laugh after the game when you see the reactions of the away fans and how unhappy they are. So yeah, it was a solid result, and of course it was so important that we followed up that Peterborough win with another win. I think that was the most important thing. Again, the performance in terms of the style wasn't so important. It was just, so essential that we managed to just get over the line and get that first consecutive 2 wins on the bounce that we haven't seen this season of yet. Just staying on Barnsley before we move on to yesterday's game against Cardiff, I think there's 2 men who we could say the exact same about for the Cardiff game, but the Barnsley game especially, 2 players really shone for me, one of which, Matt Crooks. He sort of adopted this deeper role, earlier on in the season, we'd seen him play as almost a 10 off the strikers, arriving late in the box and, getting them occasional chances of just picking up knockdowns and things like that. And through the injury crisis, it sort of forced Neil Warnock's hand into playing Matt Crooks in a deeper role. And to be honest, I think we've potentially accidentally discovered his best position, because Matt Crooks against Barnsley, I thought, was absolutely terrific.
Yeah, he's fantastic in there, playing a little bit deeper than what we have seen him in the earlier stages of the season. But he's so good at winning the ball and just knocking a neat little pass into one of our creative players, whether it be Tavernier or Pierre or spraying it out wide to the left hand side. But yeah, he's been an absolute revelation in there next to Piero, and long may that continue, really, because it's been fantastic to see them as a pairing in there.
Yeah, and of course, we've seen this week in the press that Matt Crooks has even been staying behind. I think prior to the Peterborough game, actually, where he'd stayed behind for an extra, 15 minutes, half an hour with Onel Hernandez and Piero, and just sort of went through the role that Piero would have to play in midfield, obviously with the help in terms of an interpreter in the form of Onel Hernandez. But it's just so nice to see not only a fantastic footballer in the performances putting in, Matt Crooks is a player that puts his body on the line. He never stops running. I think I've seen Warnock say that, he covered, nearly 13 kilometres in games this season, which is just, if sort of the average stats, it's more 11 or 12 sort of kilometres, which players run, sometimes, 10 if they're really lazy. But yeah, to run 13 kilometres in a game and still make the impact that he's been making in terms of defensively and getting into the box and even making impacts, in the advanced positions is just, it's sensational, really. It's, for me, I think, of course, the excitement is with the likes of Sparrow and with the likes of Piero. But for me, signing of the summer so far, I just love everything that he brings to the team.
Yeah, he's a real class act, and I think the versatility to be able to play well and get a 6 or 7 out of 10 in various positions every single week is exactly what we need. But in that deeper role, he did fulfill it against Peterborough as well, and of course has done that all of this week in the 3 fixtures that we've had. And I think he's probably been a solid 8.5, 9 out of 10 every single time he's played this week. He's been absolutely brilliant, and yeah, as we say, long may it continue.
Yeah, long may it continue. And of course, going back to another summer signing, I think it would be fair to say no one anticipated what an impact he'd have. He come in on a free, it was sort of, heard from various sources, really. I think the Gazette even put something out that Warnock was, this sort of trial period or even just joining us for training was sort of more of a favour than anything. And of course, I'm talking about Saul Bamber. He's battled back from cancer, and the impact he's had in the past 3 games, and especially in that Barnsley game again, is just, it's colossal, really. I think that's the best way to describe him. He's just a colossus of a man and a colossus of a defender. He just seems to get his boots or his head on everything. And, I've even been surprised where he can even play on the deck. He sprays passes and you think, that's Saul Bamber that's picking these passes out. But yeah, he's just a defender that loves defending. And it's great to see, again, someone that is just so eager to get to the ball and just get rid of danger.
Yeah, I can't believe that he's playing as well as he is, really. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch him playing in the heart of that Boro defence, really. As you say, no nonsense defending mixed with the ability to pick a good pass out and get us up the field. Of course, he's got aerial presence in the defensive line and as an attacking outlet going forward on corners and set pieces. And one thing in particular, the other day, I was bigging him up to a mate who I was watching the game with on Wednesday night, and I said, "Oh, honest to God, he's one of the best defenders in the division." And Bamber was going up against someone one-on-one minutes after I'd said it, and I thought, "Oh God, imagine if he gets put on toast here, and I look like a proper muppet." But he was one-on-one against Barnsley's attacker. I can't remember which one it was. And I thought he's going to get burned for pace here. And he's just made a fantastic lunge and won the ball as almost as the last man. I just thought, that's just ridiculous. What a footballer. I don't know how long he'll be able to continue playing 90 minutes for. Of course, he is almost in the twilight of his career now. He is 36, I think. And you can see that turn of pace may be a bit of a negative, really. But one-on-one, I think, with a slower attacker, he's got everyone in, especially in physical battles. He's absolutely outstanding, and yeah, I can't believe how good he's been. It's amazing. What a player and what a man.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned sort of his 1v1 skills, because I think, I remember going to that Coventry game, and I know you were there as well, and there was a few times in that first half where Waghorn in particular ran at Bamber, and every time he had the beating of Bamber. And I thought, watching that game, is it sort of the end for Saul Bamber? Of course, it was nice for us to sign him and, for Warnock to put his faith in him after the story that them two have had together. But I thought, is this sort of a signing where it may backfire a little bit? And actually, we've signed him almost as a goodwill gesture rather than on his ability. But, I never foresaw him completely doing a 360 in terms of his form and in terms of just, he almost looks like he's sort of just dropped 10 years off his life and he's back to a sort of, prime age 25, sort of 26-year-old Saul Bamber that is just, in the peak of his career, really. It's just, it's miraculous that the recovery he's made. And as you say, that one-on-one, especially against Barnsley, I think it was Woodrow from memory. I might be completely wrong. But just that last-ditch lunge, and he's so good at that, just that little jockey, and then making the tackle at the right time. It's sort of his speciality, really. And yeah, I mean, what a turnaround in terms of his performances alone, not just the team.
Yeah, for me, watching him one-on-one against strikers, I think he never really gets caught out when he tries to commit. He usually gets it right from when he needs to step in front of that attacker and win the ball on their first touch, or just let them have the ball, but make sure that they play with their back to goal. I think he usually gets that right and very rarely makes them mistakes, really. So yeah, again, I feel like we're just saying long may it continue, but we've been so good in these recent weeks, in these recent games, that it is almost like you just don't want it to end and you just want the games to keep coming thick and fast, really. And yeah, after Wednesday night, of course, we moved on to Cardiff at the weekend, which we'll get into.
Yeah, as you say, after the second win on the bounce, we moved into the Cardiff game. 12:30 kick-off. I think, firstly, before we talk about any performances from the players, we've got to talk about the performance from the fans. Because, getting up at probably, 1:30, 2 a.m. to travel to a different country, I think and make that journey, and just the dedication on show is just remarkable. So, an applause, and I can't even give enough credit to the supporters that made that trip, because, I didn't do it. Nathan, I know you didn't. And it's almost not unthinkable, but just, yeah, fantastic support as always from that sort of section of the Middlesbrough away fans that just don't really miss a game, to be honest. So just going into the game, of course, 2 changes again. It was Hernandez back in the team and Ikpeazu as well. Coming out was Duncan Watmore and Isaiah Jones. Were you sort of surprised after the Barnsley win to see changes, or do you think that those changes sort of suited the opponent that we were going to come up against in obviously Cardiff?
Yeah, I think you've got it bang on there. It suited the opponents down to the ground, really. I think Hernandez in for Jones is almost like for like, really. Both can get at their fullbacks, and both relatively similar in their abilities defensively. And then I think Big Uche coming in for Watmore just provides that physical presence up against big defenders like Flint and McGuinness. So yeah, I thought the changes going into the game, I thought were bang on, really, from Warnock, and would have gave us the best chance of really winning that game, especially with Uche and his physicality up against those centre halves.
Yeah, I think the changes for me made sense, of course. You're always going to come up against, and especially a Mick McCarthy team. But that Cardiff team have sort of become renowned for having the sort of huge centre-backs in Aidan Flint and Sean Morrison. Obviously, Morrison didn't play yesterday, but of course, still Flint, we know just as well as anyone how big of a threat he is in the air, and, his size and stature. So I think the Ikpeazu change definitely made sense, obviously, to try and give those defenders a little bit more to think about. So I think going into this game, early on, it was sort of a complete turnaround from the start of the Barnsley game, because immediately, really, we sort of took control and took the game to Cardiff. And, we had a few half chances. I seem to remember Ikpeazu having one on the edge of the box where he could have squared it to Piero. And I think Piero had his hands up in the air going berserk that he hadn't passed it. But, there was that sign of intent and there was chances early on. And it almost felt like in that first sort of 30 minutes that a goal was just, it was going to come at any moment, really. And of course, that moment come through the handball incident. Now, firstly, Nathan, what did you think of the handball? Because I know it got debated quite heavily on Sky and a few different fans had different opinions. So what was your thoughts on the handball?
It was a strange one. I didn't have the best view of it. I was, of course, going to that Sheffield Wednesday Lincoln game. So I was watching the game in a Wetherspoons, but yeah, I thought from my view that it was really a penalty. I think the ball is going to McGuinness and he's got his hands by his side, but I think he makes a movement to knock the ball with his hand. So for me, I thought it was a penalty. I don't know about yourself. You'll have listened to the commentary and what have you. So what was your opinion on it, Chris?
Yeah, I think firstly, I think the volley from Sparrow on his weak foot especially deserves a mention because, on the weak foot, to be honest, it looked goal bound to me. I think it was a great strike. But like you say, it was McGuinness that sort of the penalty was given against. And for me, I think, there was definitely both sides to the call because you could very well debate that, it was sort of the most natural silhouette that McGuinness could have. His arms were fairly tucked in and it wasn't as though, he really flung his arm towards it to block it. I don't think it was that case. But then again, with the new handball rules and sort of, I don't think anyone really knows what the handball rule is anymore, to be honest, because 1 minute it's sort of a natural reaction or, you have to have your hands behind your back or by your side. It seems to change every 5 minutes. But from the way I looked at it, and I don't want to put a little bit of bias on it because, we're here to give sort of both sides. But for me, I did think it was a penalty again. As you say, I think although his hands were probably as tucked in as possibly they could have been, the ball is still stopped by his sort of arm movement. It quite clearly hits his arm. And for me, you just can't really complain with that. And yeah, there's certainly, arguments for and against, but I think it probably was, and as I say, it could have gone either way. But for me personally, I just thought, he stopped the ball from going in probably, or at least, troubling the goalkeeper and his arms out at the end of the day. You can't, for me, you can't really argue against that. It's a handball. But anyway, a slight surprise from the actual taker of the penalty. I was fully expecting Paddy Mcnair to step up, obviously, after he'd scored against Peterborough a week earlier. But it was actually Andras Sparrow that stepped up. And, I didn't know whether I feel confident or not, to be honest. Sparrow, after scoring the other night, certainly doesn't lack confidence from everything we've heard. But we haven't seen him take a penalty yet. But he made no mistake and put it straight down the middle. And interestingly, I remember Alex Smithies on numerous occasions saving penalties. I think he actually saved the Ledbetter penalty away at QPR, and he seems to have a very good record. So I was a little bit concerned, but of course, like I say, Sparrow straight down the centre and made no mistakes, and that was 1-0. Were you sort of feeling a little bit wary when you seen that McNair wasn't going to step up for the penalty?
I think no matter what, for me, I'm always wary with Boro players taking penalties. We haven't had the greatest record really with penalties since Ledbetter departed the club. We haven't had that regular penalty taker that will take every single penalty. It usually varies, whether it had been a Sombolonga a few years ago, McNair. So well, I can't really remember.
Wasn't he? I think against QPR. I think Uche took one. So of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can't really remember if Sparrow was on the pitch against Peterborough to be able to take the penalty if he was if he was on the pitch, I think he may have taken it if he was the penalty taker. Of course, McNair did miss one in pre-season as well, while Sparrow wasn't at the club. But yeah, a penalty that he just passed down the middle of the goal really, and I thought we've got to really kick on from now, get that second goal, and put the game to bed by half time. And I think it's fair to say that the chances were there to put the game to bed before half time, really.
Yeah, there was a real boatload of chances, to be honest. And I think, namely out of all the chances that we did have, Matt Crooks was the biggest of them all. Piero, and of course, we're going to talk a lot about Martin Piero, but, just before we really go overboard, a great little touch by him to get the ball out of his feet in sort of a deep midfield position. He threaded Matt Crooks through, and I said to you even before we'd started recording this, apart from Sparrow this season especially, I don't think there's anyone else on the team that you would really want the ball to be at bearing down on goal. And I thought he's not gonna miss, but he sort of seemed to get caught in two minds, didn't really know whether to square it at Sparrow or go himself. And in the end, he sort of done neither, and it just went out for a goal kick. But what a golden opportunity for Matt Crooks that was.
Yeah, it's, again, similar to the Watmore chance in midweek, a massive chance that goes begging. But when you look back on the game, you see the scoreline, and that's all that matters, really. But I'm sure Neil Warnock will be looking at all these chances that we have seemed to have started to create in the last week. We have mentioned it that we did need to start creating a lot more chances because we aren't the most clinical side in the division, unfortunately. So the more chances we get, the more the higher percentage will probably be that will score. I think that he'll be looking at that thinking we do need to be more clinical in front of goal. Despite recent results, these chances simply can't keep going begging, really. But yeah, in at half time, 1-0 up, and I think we were all probably thinking this is going to be typical Boro. We haven't put these chances away, and Cardiff will make us pay, and they nearly did.
Yeah, they nearly did, as you say, and it would have been so typical Boro, the amount of the pressure that we applied. And to be honest, I don't think I can remember for a long time, you might have a better memory than me, where we have quite literally, battered someone for one half and had so many chances and so many, openings to grab a few goals. And obviously we didn't do that. But yeah, it just felt so typical Boro that after battering Cardiff for the first half, failing to capitalise on sort of the crowd starting to turn on McCarthy, and it got to the break. After the break, sort of Cardiff come flying out the traps really, to try and sort of make that change. Kiefer Moore come on, obviously to cause our defenders a little bit more of a problem, and they had that spell, didn't they? It seemed like every cross was lasered at the head of a Cardiff man. They seemed to be winning everything in the box. They went incredibly close a few times, and then there was that Aidan Flint header where my heart sank. I'm sure yours did as well. It was one of them horrible moments where you just think, oh no, and especially Aidan as well. It come back off the bar. How, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, Nathan, how were you feeling when that sort of passage of Cardiff pressure was going on?
It's just horrible, but it's just typical Boro that we didn't put those chances away in the first half. But yeah, that Flint off the bar was our get out of jail free card. Really, it was probably Cardiff's best chance of the game in that spell that they had towards the start of the second half. And I think we were always quite dangerous on the break. We did throw a few men forwards in spells when we did clear our lines, but yeah, it felt like an equaliser could have been coming really from when Flint hit the bar.
Yeah, there was that spell of pressure, of course, and then it sort of become a little bit more opened the game in terms of it wasn't just Cardiff pressure in the second half. We started then growing into it again. And, there was a few moments. Ikpeazu was obviously, getting into some battle with the Cardiff centre-backs, really. A few times where he turned his man, and we'll get on to him as well, because I thought at times yesterday he was absolutely terrific and done exactly what we needed him to do, especially against two physical centre-halves that he was up against. But of course, the moment that we've been waiting to discuss, the moment that the whole Middlesbrough fan base has been waiting a lifetime for, it seems. I'm not talking about just the second goal. I'm talking about Martin Piero's first goal in Middlesbrough colours. It came in the 74th minute, and as well as sort of Piero scoring it, I think as soon as that went in, everyone sort of could breathe a sigh of relief and think, it's job done now. I don't see Cardiff coming back from this. But yeah, what a moment. Nathan, I'm just going to let you describe how you saw it, because I think we're all going to have our own little stories of how we reacted and how ecstatic we are when it hit the back of the net.
Yeah, of course. The goal comes from Uche down that right-hand side. He puts a ball into the box, and it sort of bundled about a little bit, but Sparra gets it down and just lays it on a plate for Pierre, who takes a touch and fires it in the corner. And from then on, it was just it was like breathing a sigh of relief, really. Everyone was so happy for Piero, but I think the game was killed at that point. But yeah, Piero wheels away to the Boro fans in that corner of the ground. All the team were following him. Crooks was the first one there. So yeah, that midfield partnership looks to be a real fantastic duo for us in there. And yeah, absolutely brilliant scenes for us. And yeah, credit to Piero. He's been brilliant in this last week. I'm so happy for him as well.
Yeah, I think we've just got to talk a little bit about Piero, because, he'd had a few moments in the Peterborough game. Of course, he got the assist for Coburn. In the Barnsley game, again, he had a few moments, had a shot from the edge of the box, which troubled the keeper, and then sort of ran straight after the rebound and then took it past a Barnsley defender. And he's had these little glimpses, and you've just sort of been waiting for that one contribution where you sort of think, yeah, he's arrived. And it sort of felt like that against Cardiff, as you say. Good work from Uche down the wing, crosses it in, a little bit of fumbling about. Sparra lays it off. I think a little bit of credit's got to go to him, because it's just that nice little layoff into the path of Piero. His right foot takes it onto his left, and then he fires. And do you know what? I think a lot of people will probably overlook how difficult of a finish that is, especially on his weak foot. He made it look so easy. And yeah, I mean, the celebration, we obviously put out on the Twitter numerous angles of the goal. And I think, to be honest, I must have watched that goal yesterday and today combined. And bearing in mind, we're recording this on Sunday night. I think from the moment that hit the net, I'd say no less than probably 300 times. That's not an over-exaggeration, Nathan. It's the combination of the finish. I mean, it's a great goal, but not only that, his face when he scores, how much passion is in that celebration. The moment of the travelling away fans, they deserve that more than anyone. And it's just, for me, it seems probably like I'm going over the top, but yeah, I'm going to anyway. That goal is honestly probably one of my favourite goals ever from my time watching Middlesbrough, because Piero, he's struggled so much, getting into the team. Of course, there was the comments from Warnock that, I'm going to do this my own way, and the foreign lads are going to have to, bide the time, and they won't really get a chance. And after this injury crisis, Piero seems to have just grasped the chance with both hands. And that goal was really just everything that had bubbled up, in the previous two games. And yeah, it was just fantastic, wasn't it? The bromance from Matt Crooks and him is just something that, quite frankly, I'm probably too invested in.
Yeah, all his celebration was missing was a big, massive knee slide into that corner.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen enough of those lately. I think the fact that he was a little bit different and sort of, there was a bit of a jump, there was a bit of a sort of run, arms out, combination of everything. And then just that embrace between him and Matt Crooks. I mean, not only an embrace that was just lovely to see, but just sort of epitomised the sort of relationship that we've been sort of just introduced to over the past 3 games. Of course, I spoke about Crooks staying behind and helping Piero out with the positional sense of where he was going to be playing. But yeah, that bromance is just, I love it, to be honest, Nathan. I've got so much interest in it.
Yeah, and that goal as well as that celebration, just put a cap on an absolutely dominant performance. Really, apart from that 10-minute spell at the start of the second half, I think that we absolutely battered Cardiff. Really, I understand that they're one of the worst sides in the division at this current stage. Of course, that was now their 8th defeat in a row, but you still need to go there and put a performance in and get a result. And yeah, that's our first win in Wales in 7 years, which is crazy to think, considering we play there every year against Cardiff and Swansea and even Newport a few years ago under Tony Pulis.
Oh God, don't bring me down by mentioning that.
So yeah, absolutely brilliant to get that win. And of course, a third 2-0 win in a row. Clean sheets aplenty, considering the defensive issues that we've had in the last week, really, with players out injured. But yeah, absolutely outstanding. 9 points out of 9, 3 wins in a row. Piero gets his goal. Everything's looking up.
Yeah, as you say, everything's looking up, and what a turnaround, really, because I think now is sort of the moment where, you know, maybe a few people might be listening or watching and thinking, well, this is interesting because, you know, Chris said a few weeks back after the whole game, you know, I think it's time for the manager to change. And, you know, I'm just going to front it up. I don't know if anyone's seen the tweet yesterday, Nathan. I've seen that you liked it, but I think it's important for us to firstly sort of take our slice of humble pie a little bit and say, you know what, yeah, I was probably a little bit too hasty, but then it's also important to look at it that, you know, this sort of performance and formation that was stumbled on has sort of been out of Warnock's hands, really. I think the fact that he's had to sort of introduce Piero, the fact that he's had to bring Matt Crooks back, and of course, you know, it's his decision at the end of the day, so he's got to have some plaudits for that. But, you know, it's not like he's still had the same pool of players to choose from. He could have been playing this team before the last 3 results, and he hadn't chose to do that. You know, it's fallen into place quite nicely, of course. So, you know, I don't want to go too far one way and say, well, yes, you know, Warnock in, he's the saviour again. And I can't believe I said that, because at the time, I think, from my opinion and from others as well, it wasn't just the bad performances. It was the comments, you know, about Piero and about Saliki and even Uche, I remember. So, you know, there's 2 sides to it. But of course, like the big man that I am, I will also say, do you know what? He's got to have a bit of credit for these 3 wins. I can't hide behind it and say that he doesn't. Nathan, I know you sort of stayed away from making as sort of much of a judgment as me, but do you sort of feel the same?
Yeah, I think he did deserve the criticism at the time, really. Coming out in the press after the whole game and saying that he didn't know if he could do much more with the current squad of players that he had. I think that's a red flag, really, to anyone, whether that be the fan base, whether it be Steve Gibson saying, what more can I do, sort of thing. But in recent weeks, he seems to have got it right with the smaller selection of players that he does have to pick from. I think dropping Crooks in deep has been almost like a genius move, really, alongside Piero. the wing back situation has been a situation where we didn't know how well it would go, but it seems to have worked very well. And I think the form of some players, in particularly Saul Bamber, really has kept us defensively solid. And it seems like it is almost just Bamber as well. It is only Bamber as our fit centre half at the minute, and he's carried that weight so well. But yeah, he does deserve credit. In recent weeks, of course, changing the forward lineup on Saturday to have Uche in there up against physical centre halves rather than Watmore and Watmore's pace, which Watmore was so effective on Wednesday night against Barnsley, getting in behind and causing trouble. So he did get that right as well. So yeah, I think it is a bit of humble pie for us both. Hands up, and I think one of my main points prior to that Hull game was we didn't create enough chances, and since then we've created an absolute plethora of chances in every single game that we've played, and all we need now is to be a bit more clinical, start putting 3 or 4 past teams and getting games done early rather than leaving it late and sort of just being 1-0 up all the way through and just making it nervy for the sake of it. Really, it's typical Boro, but yeah, we need to start putting chances away, getting the game done and out of sight, and then we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah, you spoke about obviously the certain changes to the system, and obviously certain changes to players' positions that Neil Warnock has almost been forced into. And one of those changes, I've mentioned Piero and Crooks, and obviously the wing backs. But another one I just want to highlight, for me, Johnny Howson moving back has only been a positive for us. I think, we saw it under Woodgate, and, in fairness, one of the few positives that we could take from Jonathan Woodgate's reign as Middlesbrough boss, he sort of uncovered, Johnny Howson's ability to play in a back three and even as a wing back. And, for me, I actually prefer Johnny Howson further back, especially with the partnership that's formed between Crooks and Piero and sort of their ability to receive the ball in more difficult positions. I don't think that that's one of Howson's strengths. And because of obviously Crooks and Piero being able to do that, I think that's part of the reason why we are able to sort of create more chances now, as you say. So, yeah, I think Howson's performances have become better for me since he's actually moved back. I like the fact, he's got those sort of qualities that he brings in midfield. He's, into the tackle first. His passing range is pretty strong, He can pick a pass out, and he's actually deceivingly probably quite quick. There was a few times yesterday where he sort of made an overlapping run and whipped a ball in, which you never really think you'd see from Johnny Howson as a defender, but it sort of did pan out that way. And yeah, that for me, moving forward, would be something that I'd actually just keep, and I don't really want to see it go back to Howson being in midfield, to be honest. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think it really looks better on moving Howson back into defence with the form of Crooks and Piero in midfield. I think if that partnership in there doesn't gel as well as it seems to have done, I think maybe dropping Howson into defence doesn't look as much of a masterstroke as it has looked. But yeah, he seems very well. Of course, being a midfielder for a massive part of his career, Johnny Howson is very composed on the ball, I think. So he can step out of defence with the ball well, similar to Mcnair, really. But yeah, I agree with you. Overlapping runs from Johnny Howson has been God above, that's outrageous. A continuational theme in the Barnsley game, and of course Cardiff yesterday, getting balls into the box for Uche and Sparra. So yeah, I think also, he's very good defensively. strong in the tackle, as you say. And yeah, I would agree with you saying he's deceptively quick. Really, I suppose you have to be if you do play midfield, which of course he has done for quite a long part of this season as well. But yeah, I think that back three at the minute is almost untouchable, really, of Bamber, Mcnair, and Howson. They seem to be very defensively solid. 3 clean sheets in the last 3 games tells us that. But I think we will have a bit more of a test in coming weeks with Birmingham, Luton, and West Brom. Their attacks are a bit more potent than the ones that we've played in the last week. So we'll see where we're at come the next international break with the defensive side of things.
Yeah, I think just when you couldn't quite find your words there, I think Johnny Howson's ability to just sort of overlap past his sort of wing back caught you by surprise, and rightfully so, to be honest, because, you know, who would have thought at this season that would see Johnny Howson going back into the defence as we saw under Woodgate. I think everyone sort of drew a line under it, but, you know, it's almost been a bit of a revelation, him dropping back again as we saw under Woodgate. And, you know, as we both say, long may it continue. Just something else from the game, obviously, yesterday. It was the game that ultimately got Mick McCarthy sacked as manager. That now makes it 2 managers this season, doesn't it? That we've sort of lost the jobs. I mean, obviously, it's not just our fault. They have been on bad runs prior to our games. But yeah, I can't really remember another time where we've sort of played 2 teams such sort of shortly after each other and managed to get 2 managers sacked. So that's another little sort of, I don't want to call it a benefit of winning, because, you know, I like to see people losing their jobs, but yeah, just a bit of a strange one from this season.
I think it's a positive, though, that we can go to these sides that are on bad runs. And in the past, we have seen Boro go to these sides and just almost expect to win and not really put a performance in, but just expect to come away with 3 points. But in the games that we played against Forest and Cardiff, I think we were ruthless, really. Just finishing the chances that we do get. And just, yeah, getting the 3 points on our own accord rather than just expecting it to fall our way. So, yeah, fair play to us for going there and being so clinical. Well, I'm not going to say clinical because we're not, but ruthless. That's the word.
Yeah. Ruthless and getting the job done. So I've got 2 questions to ask you before we move on to some questions. Firstly, who are your standout performers? And I know we've sort of gone over a few of them, but I just want to really credit them for how good some of these players have been. And in particular, yesterday, for me, yesterday was probably, and, you know, you've got to consider the opposition that you're playing against, but in the same breath, you have to beat what's in front of you. I would say yesterday is probably our best performance of the season. But yeah, firstly, Nathan, who were your standout performers yesterday?
I'd say Uche was one of them. He's exactly what I love to see from a centre forward. Battles with his centre halves, won't shirk a physical battle or a battle on the deck, really. Doesn't mind pressing. And I think, above all, I think he's just a massive handful for defenders. I mean, Aidan Flint and McGuinness are 2 very physical centre halves and probably would fancy the chances at bullying quite a few centre forwards in the league for physical battles, certainly. And Uche is just absolutely outstanding at giving it back, really. I think sometimes he can get caught up in battles and maybe lose his head a few times. I think he was booked yesterday. I think he was booked. I'm sure he was.
He was booked, because I think there was a moment, in, especially in the commentary, where they were saying, you know, Warnock sort of just warned him off the camera, as if to say, you know, just concentrate on the ball, stop sort of getting involved with little things off the ball and little battles. Of course, but put yourself about by all means, but just, you know, focus on the ball and don't get yourself sent off pretty much.
Yeah, and I do feel that sometimes he can get quite agitated as well. The referees not giving him everything because, of course, he is a massive unit. And when he does get dragged to the floor, which is quite regularly actually, he does get his shirt pulled all over and gets nudged in the back quite often. And just because he's such a big centre forward, I don't think that fouls aren't fouls just because it's him, sort of thing. I think if the foul was on Watmore, it'd get given more often than if it was given. If it was on Uche, it wouldn't be given as often just because of his size and stature. But yeah, he was certainly a massive handful yesterday. So I'd say he was one. Of course, Piero in flashes is just brilliant. I think going back to the Peterborough game last week when he skipped past two players, flicked the ball in between one, and then played a ball out to the wing. In the Barnsley game, he had flashes of brilliance, of course, that shot and then racing after the rebound and nutmegging a player in the corner. And then yesterday, of course, the finish was just brilliant. So I'd say he's another one. But I think the most consistent performer out of all the ones that we've mentioned is Saul Bamber. He's just an absolute colossus of a defender, 3 clean sheets, and especially in a system at the minute where he's the only fit defender that we have, he's took that weight on his shoulders and he's played out of his skin. He's been absolutely brilliant for us, and I'm sure that every Boro fan will agree with that.
Yeah, you're definitely right there. I think those 3 that you've picked out, particularly obviously Saul Bamber again, won Sky's man of the match yesterday, and we put out his stats. I think pretty much over 70% in all of his duels that he'd won, and won man of the match, and was even a goal threat yesterday. I think he had two headers that he could have gone close with, nearly scored. I mean, what a narrative that would have been if Saul Bamber had scored against Cardiff. But yeah, like you say, Saul Bamber especially, just incredible. It's just, I mean, he probably gets almost sick of people saying it, and it does sound a little bit ridiculous, but to come back from what he's gone through in the past sort of 12, 24 months is incredible alone. But then to come back from that and then play as well as he has it's remarkable. So I can't actually give enough credit to Saul Bamber in the way he's playing at the minute. And he plays with a smile on his face as well. You can't sort of see him at the end of every game without a massive grin. And it's sort of just infectious. I can't imagine how much it sort of benefits the dressing room as well.
Yeah, I imagine that he's such a character in that dressing room as well. Of course, was captain at Cardiff City in the past, captain Leeds United in the past. I think he's been that leader in the dressing room everywhere he's been. And in the past, Neil Warnock has said that this squad of players has lacked leaders in the past, really. Lacked leaders that are good vocally. And I think Saul Bamber's exactly that. And I think Lee Peltier is another one that will be the same as Saul Bamber. Very good in the dressing room. And yeah, I think these performances from Bamber were almost made better by the fact that none of us expected it from him. So yeah, absolute credit to himself. He's been absolutely stupendous for us.
Yeah, stupendous. I mean, you couldn't really have picked a better word, to be honest. Stupendous is not too far to sort of go and say, because yeah, he's been incredible. Sort of just before we move on to the questions again, last question from me. Have you got any sort of special mentions in terms of players that you think probably might not have, got the plaudits as much? I think, all of them got the plaudits yesterday, but 2 that I'd like to just mention, and obviously you can agree or disagree with me. Firstly, Paddy Mcnair. I think in defence especially, we spoke about Howson, and, I personally rate him in that defensive sort of 3 more than I do as a midfielder. And Paddy Mcnair again yesterday, he's sort of, I've never really seen a sort of player like him where he plays in defence yet takes set pieces, can deliver a ball as probably good as anyone, has a fantastic strike on him, and sort of gets to the byline quite a lot whilst playing as a central defender. It's just, I mean, he sort of invented this own Paddy Mcnair position. I know we call him Paddy De Bruyne, but he's just got all these different elements to his game that are just fantastic. And I mean, casting it back to a long time ago for us two especially, but Reece Williams sort of used to get called a Rolls Royce, and to be honest, I'd definitely give the same sort of nickname to Paddy Mcnair, because for me he's just a Rolls Royce. He rarely makes a mistake, and yeah, he's just a great player at the championship level. And to be honest, I think he could be a great player even in the Premier League, to be honest.
Yeah, I think in that back three, he fits in really well. Of course, he has the attributes as a midfielder for Northern Ireland, and for periods of his career, he has those attributes to step out of defence, similar to Howson. He has the eye for a pass, a good forward pass, which can either be just a nice one threaded through into one of our attacking midfielders, or a long ball up to the forwards. And I think now, especially, those passes look even better because the forwards that we have are so good at holding the ball up. Sparrow, Uche, fantastic at playing with the back to goal, I think. But yeah, the deliveries from Mcnair, I think he has got a very good delivery on him, especially that one on Wednesday night for Sparrow, pinpoint on his head. So yeah, I'd agree with you on Mcnair. I think he's been underrated in his performances over the last week.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sparrow again. It's almost as if you were sort of telepathic with me there. Yeah, Andras Sparrow was my second one that I just feel again needs a mention. You know, he's been brought in from Sporting Lisbon, and you know, sort of come with a lot of expectations. I think it would be fair to say, you know, all of the reports that we've read, you know, we heard from Yannick and Sin, to call someone a European pedigree striker is high praise, but I don't think he was sort of, you know, lying or over exaggerating when he said it, because for me, you know, he might not score 15 or 20 goals this season, but his movement alone will probably create 15 or 20 goals, because it gets highlighted quite a lot on Sky, and you know, I've looked at it, and I'm sure you've noticed it as well. But his sort of ability just in his head to sort of think one step ahead, and you know, pull away from a defender and create that little gap for someone else, or just, you know, we saw it for Mcnair's goal against Sheffield United, where he sort of just laid it off and let Mcnair hit the strike. And yesterday, obviously, we saw him lay one off for Piero again. You know, his stats are slowly starting to build up. He's got, you know, 3 goals now, 2 assists, potentially even more. And yeah, I think for me, he's probably one of the best strikers that we've had in a considerable amount of time, to be honest. I think he oozes quality, to be honest.
Yeah, and I know yesterday's was a penalty, but that's 2-2 for him now, and that'll only help his confidence. I think, again, just mentioning his hold-up play, I think it's fantastic. Bringing others into play, I think he's brilliant at doing that. And yeah, movement-wise, I think he's brilliant. He headed towards that front post for Piero's goal, and of course, that created a massive amount of space, really, for Piero. He had a free shot at goal, really, from when Sparrow set him up. So yeah, again, I'd say bang on with Sparrow. I think he's probably one of the best centre forwards that we've had in recent years, especially, really, for his overall play, for his movement, and not only that, but I think he's considerably more clinical than the centre forwards that we've had in recent times.
Yeah, and I mean, unless you want to mention anyone else, specifically Nathan, I think we're ready to move on to the questions. And, you know, I'm just looking at my notes here, and I'm just going to mention it because it makes me very happy. After those results and results elsewhere on Saturday, we find ourselves 6th in the league. I mean, how has that happened?
It's crazy to think, isn't it? All it takes is a run of results. after Hull, it was all doom and gloom, even for us both here. We were all a bit down and not really expecting anything from the next few games, but 3 wins out of 3 and 9 points finds us in the playoff picture now, and it's crazy to think how a load of results there, just 3 in a week, changes the full mood around the club. Really, I think everyone looks at that thinking, well, hopefully we can just kick on from now and keep this run of results going.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, Nathan, because I've missed being quite a good football team, and yesterday especially, if I say so myself, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. We were very good, and it was lovely to watch. So on to the questions. I've been looking forward to this since I posted the tweet out yesterday. I knew there'd be some funny ones, and I think what better way to start than Craig asking, how do I curb my feelings for Martin Piero now? Quite frankly, Craig, I'm going to pass this on for Nathan because I don't actually know how to curb them because I'm having the same problem.
I would say, Craig, is my piece of advice. I'd say you don't curb your feelings for Martin Piero, really. I think everyone's in love with him at the minute. He's our Argentine, and I find myself at random parts of the day just whistling his chant to myself. I absolutely love it. I think if you look at my Twitter feed from Saturday onwards, it's an absolute disgrace how much Martin Piero propaganda there is on there. It's unbelievable. But I've got all my mates down at university saying that Piero's the best player in the league now because I have no qualms about it. He is unbelievable.
Yeah, do you know what, Nathan? Honestly, I mean, I don't know if Craig was asking for help in terms of a bit of advice or what he was expecting or whether he just wanted to hear our feelings on him. But to be honest, we just echo everything you've said. So if anyone can help us and Craig, and I'm sure a lot of other Middlesbrough fans, on how to curb our feelings for Martin Piero at the moment, then by all means get in touch because, yeah, there's a lot of love for, as you say, our Argentine at the moment, and long may it continue because, yeah, quite frankly, I'll go into uni tomorrow and I'll probably just be walking around singing his song. As you say, I've been singing it all over the place and I never want to stop, really.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I think especially in the last week or so, I've been seeing a lot, especially on Boropolis. There was you put the video out of never falling in love with a lone player. And thank God Piero's not a lone player because it'd break my heart if he was gone at the end of the season. So yeah.
Well, Nathan, I mean, surely the unthinkable won't happen. I mean, he's playing incredibly well at the moment, but if he plays incredibly well all season, then I dread to think some of the people that may be interested in him. So yeah, but we won't jump on too
just
early.
enjoy him for now.
Yeah, best thing we can say. So the next question from Leo. I don't quite think it was Leo Perkovic. I don't think I don't even know if he's on Twitter, but if he wants to, then by all means do. Yeah, it was from Leo, who does follow us, and he said, "Is Bamber now first or second name on the team sheet?" I think, to be honest, I'll answer this first and then pass it on to Nathan. I think you've actually just got to ask Neil Warnock to use both hands and just write down Piero and Bamber at the same time because both of them are the first name on the team sheet at the moment. It's a two-hander job from Neil. He's quite frankly just got to put them both down as first. That's the only logical way I can think of it, Nathan.
Yeah, they're both. I mean, Bamber especially playing absolutely out of his skin. We've said it all podcast really that he's been absolutely just brilliant for us in recent weeks. Especially this week where we've kept 3 clean sheets in a row, and Bamber's just been a standout. I think every time we're on Sky, they might as well just give Saul Bamber man of the match before the game anyway, because I think everyone knows that Saul Bamber's just an absolute rock at the back. And at the minute, I just feel like we're in no danger of conceding goals with Saul Bamber in the side. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, I hope that isn't one of them that'll get clipped up later.
Neither do I. Gosh.
When we inevitably get beat 5-0 in the next 3 games. But yeah, not with Saul Bamber. Not with Saul Bamber. I hope.
Won't happen.
Yeah, it won't happen. It won't happen. So next question from Noah. Didn't want any advice on any of our players, so thank goodness, because I mean we haven't really helped Craig out with his issue. But Noah asked, how do we improve now and what can we do better? Nathan, I'm going to pass this to you first.
Yeah, I think the main point that I've had with us this podcast, and I think most Boro fans will feel the same, is really with the amount of chances that we are creating currently, which seems to be quite a few actually. It usually in recent weeks it's been the issue of creating chances. But the main point I'd just like to make is just we need to be more clinical. I think the Watmore chance and the Crooks chance in the 2 games that we've had this week, they both stand out as 2 glorious chances that we've missed, that if you put them away, both games are put to bed by Watmore early in the second half and Crooks before half time. So I think, just being more clinical, really. We've created a lot of chances in the last week, and with glorious chances like that, they just need to put away. I think it'd put everyone's nerves at ease, and I'm sure it'd do everyone, the players especially that are putting chances away, I'm sure it'd do them a big confidence boost as well to finish the chances. So just be more clinical.
Yeah, I think in terms of Noah's question, I echo you, where I think in terms of the way we play, what we can improve on is putting chances away. But in terms of what we can do better, or more so, I'll say how we can maintain the way we're playing is, I think for Neil Warnock, obviously for a few weeks at least, he's probably still going to have to deal with a relatively small group of players. But one thing I would say is, when these players do come back, I don't think they all go back in, to be honest. I think why sort of fix something that's not broken? And I think to maintain it, of course, we've got to freshen up the squad at times. It would be ridiculous to think that this group of players currently can just, play games and games and games on the bounce. You look at Bamber, for example, he's not going to be able to play sort of, 30 games between now and the end of the season and come through like unscathed. But I would say that it's in Neil Warnock's hands now to make sure that, if and when the players are returning, that they're implemented back into the fold sort of correctly and not rushed and sort of, fitted into the areas where we can improve. I don't think we need to change formation. Like I say, the 3 at the back seems to be working at the moment. And, in terms of personnel, housing, just don't change it. I think to disrupt the likes of Piero and Crooks now would be ridiculous, really. It would be silly. There's not really any need to change it. So for me, what we need to do to sort of maintain the positive run is sort of try and keep things as the same as possible, whilst sort of slowly integrating, obviously, these players that have been out back into the squad.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'd agree with you 100% there. I think just trying to keep the players that we do have available now, keep them fit. Don't push them too hard in training, which seems to be the place where a lot of our squad seems to get injured, actually. It's quite bizarre that a lot of our squad now that are out injured have done that in training. Hall, Lawler are 2 that stand out. And of course, Amiobi, which is amazing considering he hasn't even featured in pre-season and everyone will forget about him. But 3 injuries there just off the top of my head that have happened in training. So just be careful, really. I think just need to keep the players fit, keep them firing. We're on a good run, so let's continue it.
Yeah, and in typical Boro fashion, really, Nathan, the final question from James Poole, we've been up a height this entire podcast, really. But, it's good to have a bit of realism in life, especially you don't want to go too high and sort of start sounding ridiculous. You need something to bring you back down to earth. And James Poole has done that, he said, optimism is on the up. And in such a Boro fashion, even the way he's typed it, optimism's on the up. Will they knock it up against Birmingham? And, that leads us quite nicely on to Birmingham. I think, James's comment, we'll sort of answer that once we've gone through the Birmingham game. But firstly, Nathan, obviously Birmingham is next Saturday. What type of test are Birmingham going to give us? And, what are some of the players that you've picked out that you think could give us some problems?
Yeah, Birmingham up next Saturday at the Riverside. And I think Birmingham are currently they've got a good result on Saturday, but previously they were on quite a strange run of defeats where it was quite deceiving, really. I think the performances that they were putting in deserved better than the results reflected, really. I watched them 2 weeks ago away at West Brom, and they were beaten narrowly 1-0, and they probably didn't really deserve to get beaten by West Brom. They were defensively solid, really. Just a moment of magic from Karlan Grant won the game. But yeah, defensively solid. They had Tahith Chong on loan from Manchester United in the diamond position behind Jukovic and Scott Horgan on the night. And Horgan looked to be a bit of a threat. He's quite quick, but he does have the ability to play well in physical battles with defenders. The same as Jukovic. I think we all know what he possesses. Of course, good in the air, doesn't mind a battle with defenders. But yeah, Chong looks to be the main man, really, making runs from deep, getting down the line, and putting crosses in the box for those players that are good in the air to create chances. But yeah, there'll be a test 100%. They got a good result against Swansea on Saturday, who had been off the back of two good results against Cardiff and West Brom. Troy Deeney, of course, is one name that I think Championship fans think about a lot when they think about some of the best strikers in the Championship in recent years. And he coming towards the end of his career, joined his hometown club in the summer, and he scored and set one up yesterday against Swansea in the 2-1 win. So maybe he is one to watch. They do have the forwards, as I've just said, Horgan, Jukovic. So yeah, certainly probably a bigger test than what we've had in the last week or so. So yeah.
Yeah, a brilliant little bit of analysis from you there. You sort of went through the full team almost. But yeah, fair play, Nathan. Very, very top analysis from you, and a great insight into what we're going to come up against next Saturday. I think just for me, obviously, Troy Deeney is one name that I don't want to say it scares me, because he is coming towards the end of his career. I don't want to badmouth him too much because I know exactly what will happen next Saturday. But it's not the same that I probably may have had, had it been in his Watford days. I think he had a very good scoring record for Watford against us. So we'll be crossing our fingers that obviously, despite his goal and assist yesterday against Swansea, that sort of little pickup of form doesn't continue against us. Obviously, with Birmingham, you spoke about the front line. That often changes, but one thing that seems to have sort of stayed with them this season is their use of a five at the back formation. And obviously it's interesting in that we have also sort of across the past three games used that formation to our effect as well. So, it'll be interesting to see the wing backs going head to head. And then, of course, in that back three, it will be the return of Gorgeous George. He played against West Brom. I also watched that game that you were talking about, and in fairness, looked fairly solid. But yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see him back at the Riverside. It'll be a weird one. Again, I never quite get used to seeing him not in a Middlesbrough kit, to be honest.
Yeah.
But,
so strange, isn't it?
Yeah. In terms of, Friend's weaknesses, and this is, of course, no disrespect to George Friend, but we know better than anyone else as Middlesbrough fans, if you can get pace in behind him, he does tend to struggle. So, the likes of Hernandez, Tav, even Isaiah Jones perhaps may be an option to play against Birmingham. There's certainly an area to be targeted there. But I think, as you say, it's a great opportunity for us to continue this winning run at home with the sort of optimism building. Nathan, to you, sort of, as James Poole put it, will we back it up, or do you think, we will sort of get the job done and continue this nice run of form that we're on at the moment?
Yeah, I don't want to throw the phrase typical Boro out all too often, but it would be typical, wouldn't it, for us to put a rubbish performance in. But I do have faith in this team now. I think these results in the past week have been brilliant for us, and I think the confidence will be oozing through this squad. So yeah, hopefully we just continue playing the way we are, keep creating chances, and hopefully just get that cutting edge and put the chances away.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Nathan. I mean, it would be nice if we could play exactly the same as against Cardiff and just put 4 or 5 of them away. I can't remember the last time that we really, really put someone to the sword and sort of put 5 or 6 past them. But, I definitely don't want to be making any predictions like that, because we saw against Blackpool what that can do. I think I predicted 3-0 to us and we ended up getting beat 2-1. So I'm staying well clear of any predictions. Nathan, I'm not going to ask you about your prediction just for the exact same reason. I don't want to tempt fate, to be honest. I want this run to continue as long as possible. So unless there's anything, Nathan, that you want to highlight, maybe if you just want to express your love for Matt Crooks or Martin Piero, I'm not sure. Unless there's anything else, I'm ready to wrap this up, to be honest.
Yeah, just hopefully we continue the run on Saturday. Hopefully we just put in a good performance, put away chances, don't have any nervous moments. Of course, it is Halloween weekend, so we don't want any scares or anything.
Well, of course. That wouldn't be nice, would
it? So, yeah, hopefully Boro just do the business once again and then make it 4 out of 4.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? One last question I'm going to ask. I'll give you 3 players, just a little funny one to end on. 3 players I want you to pick out. It can be any players. What do you think they're going as for Halloween? And I want you to be creative with this. I've asked you a lot of questions about the way we play, our tactics, and I want you to think about this one the most. Just 3 players and what Halloween costumes are they wearing.
We're on the spot here with this one.
In fact, I'll give you 3 players, right? Martin Piero.
Right.
Uche. And let's pick a little outsider. Onel Hernandez.
So I'll have Uche as the Hulk. I think that one speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, I can't say much else about that. I think that's a great one, to be honest.
Yeah, that one came in my head straight away. I thought, yeah, brilliant. Uche is the Hulk. Onel Hernandez. He's just a funny character. I don't know. I have him as the Joker. I think he's a funny character, but he has the ice in his veins to pull out something spectacular.
Yeah, I quite like that image, actually. Yeah, Onel walking around.
And Piero.
I think, do you know what? I think, judging off his football ability, I think he goes all out for Halloween. He's got his own barbecue. He's got his own candles on his barbecue. So if that's anything to go by, I think he goes all out for Halloween. And do you know what? I'm going to answer the final one. I don't know if you've watched it recently. Squid Game's been big, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he's banging the Squid Game, to be honest.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think I don't know whether he'd go as a competitor or whether he'd go as a sort of, the blokes.
The guards, yeah.
Yeah, the guards. I don't know which one, but yeah, I think he's definitely got something like that in his locker, 100%.
Yeah. Well, what a way to end a funny podcast there. An upbeat Boropolis podcast, which hasn't been the case for quite a while, really. But yeah, 3 wins on the spin have got us both absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, of course, Nathan. What a way to end, as you say, an upbeat Boropolis podcast. It seems like forever since we've done one of these, but yeah, it's definitely a nice change, and long may it continue. So, as always, thank you for listening and watching, whether it be YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything like that. We are on 90 subscribers on YouTube. Now, that doesn't seem like an awful lot, does it? I mean, it's people with millions, but if we can hit 100 subscribers, I'd be delighted, and I know you would as well be, Nathan. So, yeah, hit subscribe, and as always, any reviews on Apple Podcasts would be greatly appreciated. It helps other Boro fans around the world find our podcast, which, of course, we would love to be the case. So, yeah, as always, thank you for listening and watching, and that has been another episode of the Boropolis Podcast.